Welcome to part 8 of my 10-day bike trip series exploring the shores of Lake Huron and Lake Simcoe in Ontario, Canada. In this segment I'll be starting from Point Farms Provincial Park on Lake Huron and riding east to Conestogo Lake Conservation Area in the heart of Mennonite country. So today is Friday, July 27th, 2018, and I woke up at my campsite at around 7 a.m. I had everything packed up and ready to go by 8:30. As I was pulling away from camp, I decided to enjoy one last look at the beautiful blue waters of Lake Huron. I've been enjoying riding next to this lake for the last 6 days, but now I need to begin my journey back towards Toronto. Today is expected to be my furthest distance of riding on this trip. So I had ambitions of leaving really early this morning, but there's actually a bakery just outside of Point Farms which is recommended to me, and they don't open until 9 a.m. So I made a left turn when I reached Highway 21 and soon arrived at the bakery. This bakery is actually only open on Fridays, and I felt I couldn't miss the opportunity. I was their first customer of the day and ordered a chocolate bun and fruit square, which were both delicious. I continued north on Highway 21, then made a right turn onto Gore Rd. My ride so far this morning has just been retracing the route that I took yesterday, but very soon I'll be riding on new roads that I've never ridden before. The temperature is currently 19 degrees Celsius, and the forecast predicts lots of clouds today. Nevertheless, I was still sure to put lots of sunscreen on my face. This road is really quiet and peaceful with virtually no other traffic. At this house I can see a goat, a donkey, and a horse. Gore Road eventually ends and merges with Nile Rd, where I continued in the southeast direction. This road's a bit more busy, but the scenery is still really beautiful. I've been noticing a few of these big fuzzy caterpillars along the way. I'm expecting this will probably be the last of the wind turbines that I'll see on this trip. There's currently a steady wind from the west, which is perfect considering I'm mostly heading east today. The new tire that I put on my bike last night really doesn't feel much different than the one that I was replacing it with, which is a relief. I believe this crop which I've been noticing today is soybeans. This crew is busy this morning filling the cracks in the road with a tar substance. Eventually Nile Rd ends and merges with Blyth Rd, which took me towards the community of Auburn. The river at the bottom of this valley is the Maitland River, which I crossed over yesterday when I visited Goderich. At the top of the other side of the valley I made a right turn onto Baseline Road. Taking this turn will make me bypass the communities of Auburn and Blyth, but it'll take me onto a quieter road which runs parallel to Blyth Rd. That quieter road is called Hullett-McKillop Rd, and I made a left turn onto it. Riding down a nice quiet country road on a summer day when it's not too hot and the wind is pushing you from behind. It really doesn't get much better than this. I'm pretty sure this is the first sheep farm that I've seen on this trip. Since crossing the Maitland River, I've been riding within the Municipality of Central Huron, but I'm now crossing into the next municipality, which is called East Huron. I made a left turn when I reached Roxboro Line and headed northwest. It's nearly impossible to hold the camera steady on bumpy gravel roads like this, but I won't be on this road for very long. About 3 kilometers later I reached Blyth Rd and made a right turn which took me towards the community of Walton. Walton is known as Motocross Town because it's home to the Walton Raceway. I made a left turn onto Brussels Line and headed northeast. This grain elevator is situated next to the former CP rail line, which has now been converted to the G2G trail, which connects the town of Goderich to the city of Guelph. I decided to stop and take a look at the trail map. So this morning I started at Point Farms Provincial Park, crossed the Maitland River near Auburn, and now I'm here in Walton. I've covered about 45 kilometers so far this morning, but I've still got quite a bit more distance left to cover to get to Conestogo Lake. Although the G2G trail would take me in the direction that I'm heading, it's really not suitable for my bike, so I'm going to stick with my route of quiet country roads instead. So I continued northeast on Brussels Line. The time is around 11:30 and I'll soon be entering the community of Brussels, which should be a good spot to stop for lunch. Brussels was first settled in 1854 and has a current population of about 1,000. This small community has a really nice old historic downtown. Looking through the various restaurant options, I selected a place called the Jam Jar Pub and Eatery. Inside the restaurant there was a TV on, and the big news of the morning was that Ontario Premier Doug Ford was planning on unilaterally slashing the size of Toronto City Council from 47 to 25 councillors. For lunch I ordered the chef's salad and a western sandwich. Since I was still hungry after that, I also got an ice cream cone. After that I got back on my bike and continued northeast along Brussels Line. This is the middle branch of the Maitland River. Just outside of Brussels I made a right turn onto Burdan Road and headed southeast. It's great to be on an extremely quiet country road once again. The time is now about 1 p.m. and the temperature has risen to 21 degrees Celsius. There's still a steady wind behind me coming from the west and the sky remains quite cloudy. Here I'm entering the small community of Ethel. On the left I can see the old township hall built in 1892 sitting next to the fire hall. Ethel has a population of less than 200. Just beyond Ethel, Brandon Road wraps around to the north and becomes Molesworth Line. Based on the yellow painted stripe down the middle, I was expecting this would be a busier road, but there doesn't seem to be any other traffic right now. I turned right when I got to Browntown Rd and headed southeast. Before I left on this trip, I spent a considerable amount of time carefully planning out my route for each day. I do my best to maximize my time spent on beautifully quiet country roads like this one, and minimizing my time on highways or gravel roads. I normally use Google Street View to determine how busy each road option is, and a road like this with no painted markings generally means it'll probably be a good road for riding on. This farmer is spraying something on these crops. Since the plants are already partially grown, I'm guessing it's some kind of insecticide rather than fertilizer. I've now left Huron County and entered Perth County. The new municipality I'm in is called North Perth. On this side of the county boundary, the name of this road is Line 81. I made a left turn when I reached Road 169 and headed northeast towards the small community of Trowbridge. Trowbridge doesn't have any shops or restaurants, just a couple houses and a bridge. I made a right turn at Line 84 and continued southeast. This field is filled with fresh hay bales, and behind me I can see a farmer pulling a big trailer load of them. Over in the distance I can see the water tower for Listowel, which is the next large community I'll be passing through. The time is around 2:15 now, so it's much too early to stop for a meal in Listowel, but I'm hoping to find a grocery store where I can buy something to eat at the campsite later. I made a left turn onto Wallace Avenue South and headed into Listowel. The south end of town seems to be mostly newer houses. Listowel was first settled in 1852 and has a current population of 7,500. I made a right turn onto Main Street to explore Listowel's downtown businesses. At the top of the hill I looped around and headed back in the opposite direction on Main Street. I've actually passed through Listowel many times over the years en route to visit my family in Kincardine, but this is my first time being here on a bike. Over near the northwest side of town you can see the water tower up close. Once again I turned back around and headed towards the center of town. There are lots of shops and restaurants here, but the main street is very thick with traffic because Highway 86 is routed right through the downtown. I made a right turn onto Wallace Avenue North. It's not every day that I see my surname written on a sign, or at least something very close to it. Out near the northeast edge of Listowel I stopped at the Food Basics grocery store to stock up on a few items and to buy something to eat for dinner at my campsite tonight. Across the street there's a McDonald's and I decided to cool off with an iced chai tea vanilla frappe. Wallace Avenue becomes Highway 23 after you get into Listowel, which is a pretty busy road, but I didn't have very far to ride on it before I turned right onto Line 87. The time is now 3:15 and I have another 20 kilometers to get to Conestoga Lake Conservation Area. This combine is harvesting the grain off this field. I believe many of the farms along this road are owned and operated by Mennonite families. Mennonites are a unique Christian religious group similar to the Amish, which originated in Europe but now exist all over the world. I believe this white building on the left is a Mennonite church. There are many different branches of this religion with varying beliefs. The most extreme groups dress in plain traditional clothing, speak the Pennsylvania German language, travel by horse and buggy, and reject most forms of 20th century technology, including electricity. By all accounts, these Mennonites live a very green lifestyle, but interestingly, their motivation isn't the preservation of the planet. Rather, they believe that hard work brings them closer to God, and that technological advancements only hinders that. Here you can see a Mennonite family in plain dress setting up a display of gladiolas and sweet corn for sale. Many of the other farms on this road had produce for sale at the end of the driveway similar to that. They're also normally accompanied by a sign which says no Sunday sales, presumably because their religion restricts them from conducting business on Sundays. I guess I was wrong earlier when I predicted I had seen my last wind turbine for this trip. A few kilometers back I crossed into Wellington County and entered the Township of Mapletown. I made a left turn onto Wellington County Road 11 and headed northeast. I've been noticing the clouds in the sky have become increasingly more thick. On the left, here's another grain field being harvested. The farmer driving the tractor appears to be in plain dress and is probably Mennonite. But here I've arrived at the entrance to Conestoga Lake Conservation Area, my campground for tonight. I stopped at the gatehouse and purchased a camping permit. I selected this campsite for its close proximity to the restroom building. The only disadvantage is that it's also close to the seasonal camping area and someone's blasting country music on an outdoor stereo. I unpacked my gear, pitched my tent, and then got back on my bike and headed towards the beach. I took a bit of a shortcut to get there. Conestoga Lake is a reservoir which was created on the Conestoga River when a flood control dam was built in 1958. Unlike all of the other water bodies I've seen over the last 6 days, the Conestoga River ultimately drains into Lake Erie as opposed to Lake Huron. After a quick swim at the beach, I got back on my bike and headed back to the campsite. The time is now about 6:30 p.m. and since there aren't any restaurants nearby, tonight I'll be eating dinner at my campsite. Near the beginning of my trip there had been a fire ban in effect, so I've only been eating cold campsite meals so far. But since there's no fire bans here tonight, I decided to prepare a very simple hot meal. I built a small fire in the fire pit and slowly added wood to it until it was a hot blaze. Unfortunately, this fire pit doesn't have a built-in grilling rack, so I'll have to improvise a bit. For dinner, I'm going to have a can of alphabet pasta and tomato sauce. I opened the can with my multi-tool and carefully placed it on the fire. I used 2 discarded metal curtain rods that I found to support the can over the fire in place of a grilling rack. Because I'm not carrying any cookware on this trip, I'm just using the can as a one-time use cooking pot. If you're planning on trying this yourself, please do some research and make sure that the can you're using doesn't have a plastic coating on the inside. After letting the contents of the can come to a full boil, I carefully removed it from the fire using a sock as an oven mitt. I soaked the sock with water before reaching over the fire. After letting it cool off a bit, I enjoyed my warm dinner, all the while feeling slightly like a hobo. Just after I finished dinner, it started raining lightly, so I retreated to my tent. Within 15 minutes, the rain had really picked up, and I spent the rest of the evening inside the tent. So today I traveled a total of 118 kilometers from Point Farms Provincial Park to Conestogo Lake Conservation Area. Stay tuned for the next installment in this video series where tomorrow I'll continue riding southeast to Guelph Lake Conservation Area and also exploring down to the city of Guelph. I hope you enjoyed joining me on this part of the journey. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought, and thanks for watching.